everyone. My name is Rich Chester, and I'm the Director of Business Intelligence at LPA Software Solutions. It's my pleasure to be with you today to talk to you about the new reporting features available in IBM Cognos Analytics version 11.1. Today's webinar, like all our webinars, is being recorded, and you can pick up any previously presented webinar from our website, www.lpa.com/resources. There you'll find our What's New in Cognos Analytics series, which contains both overviews of releases as well as deep dives into specific features like dashboards, data modules, and explorations. In addition to our BI video library, there's also video libraries there in our other practice areas: financial performance management, information management, advanced analytics, and more. We hope you find that these videos, which are also available, by the way, on our YouTube channel, we hope they're a great resource as you continue on your analytics journey. While on that journey, you might find you need some help, and LPA would appreciate the opportunity to earn your business. The kinds of things in my practice, business intelligence and analytics, that we might be able to help you with include upgrades and migrations, upgrading from version 8, version 10, even version 11.0, say, to version 11.1, and even migrating from version 7 to Cognos Analytics. We install and configure, we can upgrade your models, we can test your content, we can help you as you go live and roll out. And helping you and roll out also includes helping you train your users to use the new features, to use the new interface, and so on. If managing your Cognos Analytics environment, your servers and or your software, is not something that you wish to focus your folks on, perhaps you'll consider outsourcing as a managed service to LPA to let us manage your analytics servers, your analytics installation, your upgrades, provide monitoring, even provide a second help desk to your support from IBM to provide how-to and development support. Perhaps you have a backlog of reporting that you need done. We have a collection of reporting experts, people who know how to gather requirements, quickly convert those to best practices designs, and implement those in your environment so that you can catch up on that backlog very quickly. Perhaps your environment is not working the way you think it should. Perhaps in some cases it's failing, or perhaps there's some general slowness that you'd like to get to the bottom of. A health check from LPA may be the prescription. We will come in, we'll examine how Cognos is installed and determine if it's installed using best practices, how it's configured. We'll look at your tuning, we'll look at your security, we'll look at your application design, and that includes looking at your models as well as looking at your reports. We'll provide you with a written set of recommendations for things that you can do that will help stabilize and or improve your Cognos environment. And finally, perhaps you would consider LPA as your training provider. LPA has written our own training materials for many of the classes, as well as we have access to leveraging IBM's training materials. So we have a complete array, not only of business intelligence training services, but also financial performance management and advanced analytics training services, covering things like administration, authoring, and authoring may be reports, it also may be dashboards, modeling, including data modules, framework manager, cube designer, transformer, and more. So hopefully you'll find that LPA would be a valuable partner on your analytics journey to support you in business intelligence or any of the other practice areas that LPA has. Speaking of upgrades, at the moment we are offering a no-cost upgrade assessment. It takes a couple of hours of your time, and we typically would do it by phone. And we take you through a structured interview where we answer a collection of questions, and based on those answers, we can provide you with a pretty accurate estimate of what it would take to upgrade your environment. And we can then talk about how LPA could be part of that upgrade, and those portions that LPA could do, and those portions that you might do yourself. We'll also take a look at some training recommendations relative to the upgrade, and we'll provide you with costs if LPA were to perform or assist you with that upgrade. This is a no-cost assessment, and if you are interested in taking advantage of it, please email sales@lpa.com for more information. Now, on with the new reporting features in version 11.1. Throughout the webinar, you can submit questions for me to answer via the chat feature on WebEx. There may or may not be time for me to answer your questions on the air, but as regular viewers know, I always answer all questions that we don't get to on the air via email after the webinar. So I look forward to your questions, so do please submit those as we go. Thank you. Our agenda today is pretty simple. I'm going to give you a quick overview, some slides about the individual reporting enhancements in 11.1, and then we're going to jump into demonstrations of those enhancements, and then again, questions and answers if time allows. This is the complete list of reporting enhancements that have been rolled out since version 11.0 was released. So on the left-hand side are the 11.0 enhancements, just to have a list of what's changed in case you are still on 10 and are curious what the new reporting features are in 11 as a general rule. On the right-hand side are the version 11.1 enhancements that we're focused on today, and those include the guided report layout, recommended visualizations, the new 11.1 visualization library with this feature called extra data, the ability to create and reuse custom palettes on those 11.1 visualizations, also reusable styles within reports, and the ability to search packages while authoring. Let's talk about guided report layout. There's two features that are part of the options, and by default, after you upgrade to 11.1, they are enabled, and they're called guided report layout and recommended visualizations. They're both under the options menu and the report tab, and you can enable or disable them as needed. This guided report layout notion is that Cognos will build the table structures needed to support the placement of objects on your page. So in previous releases, 11.0 backwards, when I wanted to arrange my report page in a particular way, maybe have 3 objects across the top and then 1 object below it, and then 3 more objects below that, it would be up to me to add a table structure or perhaps a combination of tables and blocks to lay out my page in that fashion and then drop my objects into the table cells. With guided report layout, the reporting tool, actually builds the table structures necessary to lay out your page just based on where you drag and drop items on the canvas. It's enabled by default. You can disable it if you, for some reason, need to disable it, that it's adding things that you don't need. So it's a kind of thing you can turn on or off. I will demonstrate how this works once we get through the rest of the overview here. Oh, and by the way, everything is sized percentage-wise. That way, as you change screens, the tables grow and shrink relative to the screen size the report's being displayed on. Now, recommended visualizations is the other part of this options turn on and off features. And this is about dragging data from your metadata, your data module or your package, and dropping it on the canvas, not into a data container, but just dragging it onto the canvas and dropping it. And Cognos will examine the types of data that you're dropping and will choose a visualization that matches the types of data that you're dropping. Now, maybe it presents a combination chart and you would prefer to have it in a heat map, or perhaps it presents a map, a choropleth map, let's say, using the mapping visualization, and you really need it to be tabular. So once it's on and the visualization's been selected, you're not stuck. You can just click the Change Visualization button, and you can select a different visualization shape, if you will. But the idea here is that this makes creating a report and choosing the containers for my data something automatic based on the data types that you're dragging in. Very akin to how we write visualizations or create visualizations in a dashboard, where one of the primary ways in a dashboard is to simply drag and drop data on the canvas. So this enables that same feature, that drag and drop, let Cognos pick the container feature in a report. Now, With the 11.1 release comes yet another visualization library. So if in terms of listing all the libraries available in 11.1 with the visualization tool, you've got the charts library, which originated back in Cognos ReportNet. Then you've got the Rave visualizations that originated in Cognos 10. Those are referred to as legacy visualizations. Then you have the Rave visualizations, Rave 2, I guess, that came out with 11.0, and now you have a fourth library, which is the 11.1 visualizations that obviously came out with version 11.1. And it is just the 11.1 visualizations that contain this new feature called extra data items. And the idea here, if you use them, and you don't have to, they're optional if you use them. But the idea here is that you display visible data. In the example I'm showing on my screen, my x-axis is going to show years. My y-axis is going to be based on the revenue measure. And I'm going to get a different area, since this is an area chart, for each retailer type. And it's going to show how the data changes year over year. Now, if I were just to run a report with those three drop zones filled in, I would get an area chart just as a normal area chart that I would expect. And because let's say I'm running in the interactive mode of reports, when I click on the chart, I can filter by year, I can filter by retailer type, I can even filter by revenue, the visible data. What extra data does is that it gives me a drop zone where I can add additional data to filter on when the report is run. And what's interesting is the filter is actually not implemented by rerunning the report. So if I click on the report, I click on filter, I change the product line in this case, because that's an extra data, to a different product line. It will rerun and filter locally on my PC. So the filtering action is very, very quick as a result. So I'll demonstrate that. This just shows you this notion. So with my area chart and my extra data, my visible data is filterable, right? That's my three objects here. And the extra data gives me an additional way to filter during runtime. Now, the caveat that goes with leveraging extra data is this. Once you have extra data defined in your 11.1 visualization, the only format that's supported for running that report will be HTML. If you omit extra data and you just populate the other drop zones, then these visualizations will work across a number of output formats with a couple of exceptions. But with extra data, the rule is only HTML output format will be supported. So we'll demonstrate that in a moment. Now, custom palettes have been around in reporting for a very long time. The thing is, those custom palettes were different by visualization library. They also weren't usable in anything but a single report. Now, I could copy and paste them from report to report, but I really didn't have a way in charts or in the previous visualization sets to name and save a palette that I could then use from report to report to report very easily, just by picking it from a pick list in a property sheet. That's what custom palettes introduces for the 11.1 visualizations only. So if you add an 11.1 visualization and you would like to control the color of your series, to use the old-fashioned term, you can create a palette. You can create both categorical palettes as well as heat type palettes. And there's a couple of different ways to do them. You can use automatic or custom. So categorical and continuous are the two palette types. Continuous are what you might use on a heat map or on a chloropleth map, that kind of thing. Categorical would be, one for camping equipment, a different color for mountaineering equipment, and so on. You have lots and lots of options in terms of creating them, but the cool thing is you can name them and save them. And not only can you then reuse those on other 11.1 visualizations across a bunch of reports, you can also leverage those same palettes in a dashboard, a story, or an exploration. So this gives you sort of a simple way for you to create color palettes that are reusable across all of your visualization type objects. Now, report specific is this notion of reusable styles. So All of the styling functions, which include the obvious things like font and color and background color, and maybe some of the less obvious things like borders and alignment and background images and that sort of thing. All of those style properties have been collected into a single pop-up now, and you access it through this new button that looks like a paintbrush that's outlined here on the screen. And not only can you specify all the styles in a single place, you can also name a collection of styles, and then within reports only. But within reports, you now have access to these named styles so that you can apply them on multiple objects across multiple reports that you write. So again, this notion of saving a look and feel and giving it a name, in this case using the style properties of your report, not just color palettes for visualizations. So we'll take a look at that. And then finally, you can finally search a package. You type in a search keyword at the top right above where the package lives, and you will get all the matches. You then drag and drop from the matches onto your canvas. So we've been wanting to search our packages for years and years, and now we can with the version 11.1 release. So those are the features and functions. I don't have a slide on the fact that the user interface for reporting has changed, but you'll see in a moment what that user interface looks like. So this is my Cognos Analytics. This happens to be an 11.1.2 environment in case you're curious. And I'm just going to start out by creating a new report. The report templates are the same in 11.1. And the whole concept is the same, where you get a collection in the samples if you import them. And then you can also create all your own palettes, and they'll appear on this pop-up. I'm going to go with the blank layout just to get started, and I'm going to go select our friendly neighborhood Go Sales package, just like you might using the samples. So there's the Go Sales data on the left. I'm going to go up here and just describe the new interface for you. If you're an 11.0 aficionado, you'll notice that virtually all the buttons but one have been removed from the navigation bar. So there used to be a toolbox button that's now a tab here. There used to be a Pages button. There used to be a Queries button in the later versions of 11.0. That's all been replaced by this navigation toolbar here. So this toolbar, if you click on Report, will show you, basically give you access to all those explorers, my Pages Explorer, my Queries Explorer, my Variables, for my Condition Variables Explorer, as well as show you all of the items that have been defined in those collections, like there's my page that's been defined. And so you move around the report, you go to the proper Explorer by using this navigation bar. So that's perhaps the biggest difference in terms of 11.0 to 11.1 tool layout is this bar here with this navigation tool in it. There used to be a number of options hidden in a number of different places. Sometimes you had to right click, sometimes you just had to know where the option was. They have consolidated all those options here under this More sprocket. So the copy to and from your clipboard, the generate SQL, the validate my report, and so on, those options are now all consolidated under the sprocket here. The property sheet is essentially where it was in the 11.0 environment here on the right-hand side. You still have your 3-page views, but they're no longer an eyeball icon. They're just listed here in this list, and it shows you what your current setting is with the black dot, which is nice. Locking and unlocking your report is now an icon versus hidden in a menu item. So I think they've made the interface cleaner. I think they've made it a bit more intuitive, actually, than the previous releases. So I think overall it was a good upgrade. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to the options here and just ensure that my Enable Recommended and my Enable Guided are both turned on, which they are. So I'm just going to click OK. I'm going to go back to my source pane, and I am going to just start laying out a report. And as I drag and drop data onto my canvas, I want you to note that you'll see some tables being built automatically. And you'll also notice I'm not adding any data containers. I'm not adding singletons. I'm not adding lists. I'm not adding crosstabs or visualizations. They're all going to be added for me through the recommended visualizations feature. So let's get started. So if I'm going to lay out, let's say, a dashboard, and maybe across the top I'd like to have a KPI on revenue, I'm just going to drag revenue onto my canvas, and you see this icon indicates a visualization is about to be created. And this visualization, this is actually a new one. This is called a summary visualization. I'm going to move into page preview mode so we can say data as we go. Now, perhaps on this side, on the right-hand side, I'd like to see my planned revenue. So I'm going to drag planned revenue in. And so you see how it is about to build a table with 2 columns for me as a result of that layout, that guided report layout feature. So I'm going to drop my planned revenue widget here, and it's going to present that for me, and again, in one of these new summary widgets. And then finally, perhaps I want to put profit between them. So I'm going to just drag profit in the middle. And you notice it just inserts a column for me. And now I'll have 3 columns at the top. If I click on a cell, notice that it's sizing by percentage, like I mentioned. That way the table will grow and shrink based on the screen size of the user when they run this report. Now, that's not to say that I can't go to my toolbox, guys, and add a block or a table by hand. I can absolutely do that. The point, though, is that with this guided report layout turned on, I may not have to do as much of that. So this is one of the examples. This is perhaps an easy example of the notion of a recommended visualization. I'm going to go ahead and do a slightly more interesting one, or not a summary one. Let's at least put it that way. So I'm going to go to time. I'm going to grab year. I'm going to go to products, and I'm going to grab product line by control clicking on it. So you see they're both selected. And then I'm going to grab a measure, revenue. So with those 3 items selected, I'm simply going to drag them here into my canvas. It's going to create a visualization. It's going to be one of the 11.1 visualizations by default, by the way. And so you see it's created an area chart. Now, if an area chart is not to my liking, I can click on the Change Visualization button. I'll get a list of recommended visualizations. These are the ones that the tool says match the data I selected. And you see I've got this option for a column. And by the way, to select it, you double-click it. So you've got an option, let's say, for a column. There's my area chart now in the list because I'm not showing it as an area chart. I've got this, and it actually sort of tells you some information about the data, kind of a why it picked the visualization type it picked. So I can click on this. I guess that's a heat map, although I'm not going to swear to that. So there's this recommended world. Now, it may be, though, that you know the visualization you want. It doesn't happen to be one of the ones IBM is recommending. That's where you go to all. And here, where if you wanted to convert it to a crosstab, you absolutely could. Okay, I'm going to undo that and go back to a visualization. In fact, I'll go back to the area chart because that was certainly a reasonable visualization. Now I can select the visualization and resize it. And notice that it's resizing as a percentage. And it gives you this nice guide that shows you the resize. Okay, and if I click off of it so I can get rid of the data panel, it'll give me a better feel for the view that I'm going to have. So that's guided report layout and recommended visualizations. And again, you can still go ahead and add from your toolbox. So you're not sort of stuck with just this new way. So you see, even when I add a visualization from the toolbox, my guided report layout will still go ahead and add the table I need. So these visualizations can be side by side. And I'm just going to drop that visualization in. I'm actually not going to add it to this. I just wanted to show you what I was talking about from a visualization gallery perspective. So these are the Cognos 8 and 10 charts. Which one it is, 8 or 10, depends on the option, whether you're using legacy charts or the new charts. That's just a checkbox in the option screen. Legacy visualizations, those are the Cognos 10 Rave visualizations. These are the visualizations introduced with 11.0, and these are the ones introduced with 11.1. So you've got these four libraries, categories, whatever you want to call them, that you can access through the visualization tool. Whenever Cognos presents you with an automatic visualization such as this one, it's always an 11.1 visualization. Now, let's go ahead and look at two things. We're going to look at the extra data thing, and we're going to look at this color palette thing. So first, let's do the palette since we're right here. So we're going to double click here, and you'll note that there is a collection of pre-built palettes that came from IBM. So, with the upgrade came these palettes, and these may be perfectly fine. These may be exactly what you need, and you're of course just free to click on the one you want and use it. I'm going to go ahead though and create a custom palette. I'm going to give it a name. You can see I've done this before. It's got some names there. And then I'm going to, this is categorical, so this is pick a color for each area of my area chart. I'm going to go ahead and talk to you about automatic versus custom. Automatic is pick the color for the swatch I've selected and let IBM fill in the rest. Let the Cognos tool fill in matching colors for the rest. So I'll pick on this purple, and it will come up with a collection of colors that match the purple as my starting point. And if I decide that these two colors are maybe too close together, I'll click on this guy and I'll pick a vastly different color. And with automatic turned on, it fills in the rest of the swatches. So that's one way to go. The other way to go would be to go with custom and pick a swatch, pick a color, pick another swatch, pick a color. And as you can see, I can mix and match the approach until I am completely happy with the color collection that I've selected. I've given it a name. And by the way, if I know the formula for the color, I can always go to the wheel and enter the code for the color. So I don't have to work just with the swatches that are predefined. I can code any color I wish. Once I've got the colors I want, I've given it a name, I'll hit save. It will be added now to a custom collection, which is private to me. And I can always change it. I can duplicate it and then change it, or I can remove it from here. I'm going to go ahead though and select it and then go back. And you note that it is now using the color palette that I saved. And if I were to add another 11.1 visualization to this report, that palette would be usable. I'm going to very quickly though jump over to a new dashboard and show you that it is also available there. So again, I'm just going to grab a data source and add it. I'm going to throw some data onto the canvas, product line, and revenue product line, and I'll go ahead with year, drag those onto the canvas, and if I control click them, no, apparently I didn't control click them properly. So let me just get those two guys in here so I have a chart. And now I have a chart. This chart has a property sheet. In the property sheet, it has a color. And in the color, I have access to those same palettes. And if I say change color palette, you'll see the palette I defined in my report is also available here in my dashboard. So just wanted to give you that quick reminder that these palettes are reusable, not just within reports, but also within dashboards and stories once I've defined them. So here I am back in my report. So that's palettes. Now let's work with some extra data. I am showing product line, revenue, and year, but perhaps when I have my users run this, I want them to be able to filter this visualization by region as well. So I'm going to go to my data. I'm going to grab region from my retailers, and I'm going to drop region into extra data. And then you drop these one at a time. You don't get to control click and drop in the extra data. You drop one, you get a new drop zone each time. And I'm also going to filter by order method type. So I'll drag those two guys in. Now, this little guy here is telling you that once you use the extra data drop zones, you can only use this visualization in HTML. So that's the warning here. And I mentioned that earlier, I think. I'll run this in HTML. so we can see what it would be like from an end user perspective. So there's my visualization in my palette. And if I select my visualization in the filter area, not only do I have the visible data that was showing my product line, my revenue, and my year, but you see I've also got that extra data available here, region and order method. I'm going to select a region, and you'll note it changes amazingly quickly. And that's because the filtering is actually happening on this PC. It's not going to cause a rerun of the report and go and requery the database every time I make a change in this filtering technique with 11.1. So that is kind of cool. And of course, I can do the same thing, right, with the visible data. And then, let me just look at web orders. So this might be a feature that will give your end users a lot of flexibility in terms of being able to tailor the report output to their needs by being able to do very quick filtering locally on the data that you've provided, both the visible data and the extra data. So that's that extra data portion. And again, only on 11.1 visualizations. And if you use it, the visualizations are only renderable in HTML. The last thing I'll show you is just a quickie on package search. So if I type in revenue or rev, oops, you got to type it in correctly though. You'll note that the 3 matches for revenue show up, and if I were to drag planned revenue in here, for example, to replace revenue, that just works, right? So we can finally search a package for contents. So a great add and a welcome enhancement. And then finally, I want to show you this reusable style. So I'm going to click here on this revenue data item here. I think I might have to, let's see, I think I might have to unlock to get it. Yeah. You see the paintbrush here. I'm going to go ahead and click that to look. I've got some styles I've already defined. I'll define a new one so you can see how. I'll give it a name. I won't do anything terribly creative here. I'll just change my font family and size so that it'll be an obvious change, and I'll just change the color to something obvious. But let's say that this is a style I want to use over and over and over. I'm going to go ahead and save the style, which will save it with this name. And now I can use this across any report I write. I'll also apply the style, and then I'll select this guy, and then I'm just going to click on reuse that demo style. So this will allow me to create a set of styles, edit an existing style. I can also remove any style I no longer feel I need, but this gives me a way to create a look and feel, maybe a library of some small number of look and feels that I use from report to report to report, and define them once and use many. And it's literally all of the style capabilities, not just the simple font and color stuff, but it's sizing, it's background, it's all of the notions, borders and padding and margin and all those kinds of things. They're all listed here in one place now. You might have noticed that it updated the appropriate properties here automatically for me. So it's just a nice shortcut to all of those properties. And those are all of the new reporting features available in Cognos 11.1. Now, looking at the time, I see that I am actually out of time for this webinar. This was supposed to be a 30-minute webinar, and I've already gone over. So let me say, first of all, thank you very much for attending today. From a questions perspective, you've submitted a number in the chat. I will absolutely answer every single one of those questions via email after today's webinar. I apologize for running out of time, but hopefully you found being able to see a demo of all of those features valuable. And again, I'm Rich Chester. Thank you very, very much for attending today, and I hope you'll attend another webinar with us soon. Bye-bye.